Hello everyone, friends, my name is Igor Gavryshchak. This is a traditional YouTube platform of Channel 24. Traditionally, this is Thursday evening. We will talk about what is happening in the United States of America. And there the boiling point is already approaching, because the presidential elections in the United States of America are about to begin in 5 days. Of course, we will talk about this and not only, and about Volodymyr Zelenskyy, Tomahawk, and why this information appeared in the public space with our regular guest analyst. This is Ramiz Yunus, a political scientist from the United States of America and former chief of staff of the Azerbaijani government. Mr. Yunus, greetings. Hello. Thank you for the invitation. I am glad to see you in good health. I greet all our esteemed audience. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes. Mr. Yunus, last time we discussed the sensational BRICS summit in Kazan, but now the new top news is, of course, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, who met within the framework of Northern Europe Ukraine. He, as is clear, gave comments to the media, and this can really be called top news, since the day before there was information that in terms of victory, there was a request to North America to provide Ukraine with Tomahawk missiles, which have a range of 2–2.5 thousand kilometers. And in a conversation with the media, Zelenskyy said that it was a secret plan. And why this information appeared in the public space, it disappointed him, and he understands that somewhere something is wrong with Ukraine's partners. Here are a few points that are important to note. There are pluses and minuses. That is, I emphasize, there are advantages here as well. I'll start with the minus. The downside is that if there are some kind of confidential negotiations, and here it's actually behind closed doors, and this plan of victory was discussed in a very small circle of people, and the leak could have happened thanks to those people who were involved. It can be from the American side, it can be from the European side as well, because what difference does it make what is voiced? That is, this is a request to the Americans, a request to the Europeans, but the request to the Americans is known to the same European leaders and vice versa as well. But this is confidential information, and a narrow circle of people who have access to President Zelenskyy himself, who takes part in it. Therefore, I also have no doubt that this is a question for the security service of both the Ukrainian and special services in the West and, first of all, the security service of the President of the United States of America. If it concerns the interests of the United States, among other things, this must be seriously addressed. Why this is being done, who is the initiator of this, and for what purpose it is thrown into such an information field. Perhaps these are those who are not directly related to the administration, but hold a different point of view. Because today you all understand that the Biden administration is very diverse, and not only those people who will leave with a change of power take part in it, but there are a huge number who can remain in office. Whenever administrations change, I want you to understand that key positions leave, that is, there are top positions. That is, I mean the Secretary of State, Deputy Secretaries of State, Assistant Secretaries of State and top officials for all departments. And all the other executive, so to speak, permanent apparatuses, he remains. Therefore, managers simply change. It is quite possible that these are the leaders and employees at the grassroots level of the apparatus, the direct executors who carry out all this. They may hold different political views. But in any case, this is a leak, and it does not bode well. Because if the leak is in this area, then it could have been a leak in various other directions before that. And what is the level of this leak? And where it has been flowing all the time, today we understand that this is not out of nowhere. Sometimes there may be questions that leak to the enemies of the United States of America. This does not only apply to the topic of the same Ukraine. Therefore, this is a purely distinctive moment that requires attention, and President Zelenskyy was right to voice it. But having voiced this, you have a positive moment, which from my point of view, everyone heard today that, it turns out, yes, the Tomahawk is what President Zelenskyy asked for. And if you analyze the plan for the victory of President Zelenskyy, which no one liked, neither in the West nor in Russia, but is fully supported by the Ukrainian part, not only by the Zelenskyy team itself, but also, as I understand it, by the majority of Ukrainian society, this says a lot. This shows the seriousness of Ukraine's intention to stand firm on this issue. Regardless of who is here in the United States in the administration and who in Europe will come to power tomorrow or how they will feel about this war. Therefore, this is once again both a message to Western partners and a message to Russia, in the sense that it is not very strong and try to look behind the scenes for some opportunities for some separate deals, but we will not agree to this. If today we talked about Tomahawk in our plan to win in its closed part. But I can add, it would be nice if they voiced about the Tomahawk, then they would voice the other part of the secret plan, which concerns the non-nuclear strategic deterrence of Russia. What does this mean? That is, if it is not a nuclear weapon, I understand that. In plain text, this is the presence of a NATO military base and, perhaps, a US military base, as the leader of NATO on the territory of Ukraine. A solid military base, there are F-35s, F-16s, and a military contingent. That is, at the level of what it is, at least in the Baltic countries. And this will also be a fairly strong message. That is, people should understand, all those who are involved in this topic, how seriously Ukraine stands today on the positions that President Zelenskyy voiced. And the fact that he voices this, and sometimes so impartially talks about what he does not like, and he voiced not only this, he also voiced other points that relate to the same Poland, and many other points. And when he says that he will work with any US president, whoever comes here, this is also a message. He says that you never know, Trump will come, who declares that he will stop this war in 24 hours a day. President Zelenskyy openly says that this will not happen, and Trump will come to power. He simply will not be able to do this. This is also a positive thing, because many people scare him precisely with the fact that he will come and can do it. This will not be allowed by Ukraine itself, and this will not be allowed by the opponent of the same Donald Trump, who will be in the same Congress, both in the upper house and in the lower house. Therefore, summarizing all this, I would not say that this is top news at this level. This is just a trend in the direction that all these conversations in the IPSO network, as it is fashionable to say now, which are thrown out from all sides in order to show that Ukraine is allegedly being dumped, they have no basis. This is just informational rhetoric that came out in the media today, and President Zelenskyy simply dotted the I's with his statement. Yes, Mr. Yunus, can this be considered a kind of reproach by Volodymyr Zelenskyy to the Biden administration? Because in the same conversation with the media after the meeting of Northern Europe and Ukraine, he noted the following: at the NATO Washington summit, where they did not make a promise of membership or any assurance to be in NATO, the Allies said that they would provide 7 to 8 air defense installations, including Patriot and others. Zelenskyy said that there is nothing at the moment, it was summer, and now it is autumn. Zelenskyy also recalled the aid that was voted for so long in Congress, $61 billion. I remember very well then that the Democrats said that these were all Republicans who did not want to, and the Speaker of the House of Lower Representatives, Mike Johnson, did not want to vote. But time has passed, they voted, and now Zelenskyy says that only 10% of this aid came to Ukraine. Then I have a question: is this a little bit of a pass from Zelenskyy to Trump and a reproach to the White House? Because allegedly in recent months no one has prevented the White House from giving not only 10%, but a little more of this money. The fact that President Zelenskyy voiced this personally tells us that on the topic of Ukraine he wants to say, as I understand it, he wants to tell the Democrats that you will not be able to speculate on the Ukrainian topic if you do not support me. If you do nothing, I will not be silent, I will say it. And by saying after that another phrase that he will work with any president, this is also a curtsy towards Donald Trump as well. That is, you see, he does not speak out unequivocally. Donald Trump, on the other hand, makes a lot of anti-Ukrainian statements, and especially his supporter J.D. Vance. These Democrats seem to be introducing a shirt about Ukraine and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, but in words this is one thing, and in reality it is another. And as I understand it, President Zelenskyy decided to arrange this for everyone. That is, he will not remain silent and will not openly say whose position he supports, but shows that if he is not satisfied with something, he will express his dissatisfaction with the lower administration, despite the fact that, it would seem, they provide him with something. But he will not remain silent if Donald Trump comes, and Trump needs to see how he behaves with this administration, because he will behave the same way with Trump himself. You know, looking at the foreign policy of the current president of Ukraine, I am more and more convinced that he simply has no other options. It operates in a state of sung-sung. The main thing is that in this situation he stands firm. And so his firmness forces both the Americans to reckon with this, and the Europeans to reckon with it. The firmer it stands, the more it will be able to skim the cream. As Donald Trump said, he always arrives and he always leaves with his hands full. That is, he must continue his active offensive foreign policy, and they must always be afraid that he may openly voice many things that they would not like to hear publicly. Therefore, you must support him, and that is why he unveiled a plan for victory, enlisting the support of Ukrainian society first of all. This is a very important point. The more you support this plan of victory and President Zelenskyy personally, the more likely it is that no one in the West will dare to make separate deals behind your back, as they will look for opportunities inside Ukraine to also continue to put pressure on President Zelenskyy. If they fail to do this from inside Ukraine, I think President Zelenskyy's tactics will work. And I would also like to ask you about the latest research and surveys. What is the situation now 5 days before the vote, and are there any gaps in Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, or is someone cutting it? Explain the situation to us, because here we read a lot. We are trying to understand a lot now. What are the chances of someone, or can we now talk about the chances of one of the candidates? The first thing I advise you is not to listen to the American media, none, because they all lie. That CNN is lying, Fox News is lying, the Washington Post is lying, the New York Times is lying, and all those that are tied because they are tied to certain parties. It's no coincidence, the owner of the Washington Post, this is the owner of Amazon, Bezos, I think his name is, one of the richest people on the planet, banned the Washington Post, and not only the Washington Post, and all the other few newspapers got involved in this, that there is no need to support any of the candidates. Because the Washington Post is a traditional Democratic Party. And the fact that American society today is so polarized and so many lies are splashed out on the page of all the media, including all of the above, including the Washington Post, this shows the level of polarization of American society. If you are the owner of this newspaper, if you say that the media is the fourth estate, then at least it should be the power and should trust. But today in America no one trusts anyone. The Supreme Court is not trusted, the presidential candidates are not trusted, the executive and legislative branches are not trusted, and a lot of information is not trusted. Therefore, the polarization of society is to such an extent that no one believes these questions of public opinion. And it is clear that America chooses less of two evils than they say that 60 million have already voted. So what's next? What is 60 million? What is the population here? This is America, and look at how many people will come to the polls in the end. That is, the number of those who can vote. And according to polls, many say that almost half of the population will not go to vote. I will not go to vote at all, and I see a huge number of people who do not want to participate in this choice of the two evils less. Which of them is the lesser evil? It does not say. You have to choose from two good ones, at least which of them is better. And sometimes it fits like this. Therefore, both have a negative rating. My observation from the outside, I look like this, they go straight into the nostril. Because America, after all, has already established an election system here. And today, if I understand that 43 states seem to have already been determined. Look, the elections in these 43 states have not yet taken place, right? But everyone knows that 43 states will already clearly vote. For example, I live in the Maryland state. No matter what even Trump's supporters do here, I tell you in advance, the Maryland state will vote for Kamala Harris. It is a democratic state. Therefore, there is nothing to catch Republicans here. This is historically the way it is. And here are 43 states. Basically, these 43, they decided like this, and they divided, one might say, in half. These 7 states that are being talked about, the ones that have not yet been decided, are Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Oregon, North Carolina, that is, those that have been named, Nevada. These are the 7 states, right? That's where they also go neck to neck. Because there are different topics working there. There are Latin American issues, African American issues, even Armenian issues are working there. Armenian issues, for example, in Pennsylvania and Michigan, well, as you understand, I am closely following the Armenian-Azerbaijani issues. Therefore, this is not only California, as we are used to. These are Pennsylvania and Michigan. And this is far from accidental. When Biden sent the letter, said something on this topic, Trump, who is generally on the light bulb of this topic, he was completely silent. And he also tweeted on this topic, because this Twitter will be read there in Pennsylvania and Michigan. Therefore, they are both on Jewish and Arabic themes, that is, on all these topics they try to work in these states. And these states voted differently. In some votes, they voted for the Republicans, in others for the Democrats, and therefore today no one can say clearly either. 5 days left. Well, if someone doesn't make some kind of mistake now, I don't think anybody can make any mistakes. And the fact that these conversations are going on, someone calls someone something, that's how they call each other from morning to evening. They call each other these last words. It's disgusting to look at, right, sometimes. But you understand, this is pre-election rhetoric, and it has no basis, so no one today will be able to clearly say what can happen on this topic. The only thing I can say is that the lessons of January 6th, the lessons of what happened 4 years ago, I think, the American system took into account, and it drew all the conclusions. I don't expect a repeat of January 6th, despite the fact that when you watch, for example, listen to Elon Musk and his Twitter, he turned this Twitter into garbage, the former Twitter that he has now bought, 40 billion, and it turns out that he bought it only to use the court campaign. But it does not give him these opportunities. For example, I bought sweepstakes there. They are now betting on sweepstakes. Yes, she, again, is a supporter of the same Donald Trump. Well, a lot of money. The Republicans have a lot of oligarchs who are supported. Well, the Democrats have immeasurable money. Moreover, the Democrats collected much more for this court campaign. All Hollywood stars skate. Tomorrow Kamala Harris, they say, Jennifer Lopez will be inferior somewhere, other Hollywood stars come there. But few people believe these Hollywood stars either, you know. Everyone understands that there is a question here. They want to solve it with money, and this does not work here either. But if it works well in these 43 states, then these 7 states are now pouring so much money into them for advertising. Damn, open YouTube. There, for example, when the segment American Citizen appears, there is definitely this topic, depending on who is on whose side, who has invested more money and whose ads are shown there. And you don't even know if from morning to evening there is either Republican agitation or Democratic agitation. And this is not only at the level of presidents. This is at the level of the Senate, including at the level of the lower house, because it is very important how the map will be laid in both the upper house and the lower house. The lower house is the budget, the upper house is the personnel appointment. That is, all ambassadors will pass from there, all ministers will pass from there. Do you understand? Therefore, whoever is president, he will have to reckon with the same Congress. If you want to implement some goals and objectives, you will need money. This means that it is necessary for the budget to be approved. And in order for the budget to be approved, you must have confident support. And this, judging by the situation that I see now, is a big gap. At the level at which there is now Congress, I mean the lower house, there are 5 votes of the Republicans. In the upper house, there is 1 vote in favor of the Democrats. It seems to be at the same level and it will remain, they say, in any case. But this can change a little here, a little there. But again, this will not be at the same level as, for example, it was in the days of Barack Obama, when he had a large drive. That is, he had more than 60 votes in the Senate, so Trump came to power and could not cancel it. Therefore, I think President Zelenskyy also understands this when he says that he will work with any president, whoever it is. He understands that by saying this, he will be working not only with the president and with Congress, including because one president is not Russia and this is not China. Here, too, the Congress will have to reckon with this, and given that there is also Congress, no matter how you treat it, it also has quite strong powers. And there is definitely a law, for example, that prohibits the US president, whoever he is, from unilaterally deciding to withdraw from NATO. Because Trump says a lot of things like this, Congress will not miss it. Therefore, this is a lot that has been done in the pre-election rhetoric, it will not correspond. To sum up, I can tell you that no one will tell you clearly today, and I will not undertake to talk about it, because this is fortune-telling on coffee grounds, because there is no such clear advantage for anyone, not for any side. If you listen to the Republicans, Donald Trump is ahead by a huge margin. He even said 250 million for me today. In the morning he said 220, in the afternoon he jumps 250. Where does he get these figures? If you have 250 million for you, there are 340 million people in America. It turns out that 80% of the population votes for you, almost that they vote. But this is not true. On what basis? He just took it and blurted it out into the air, and that's it. Therefore, everything they say today is not true, and the night from the 5th to the 6th will be very tense. Everyone will be waiting carefully. I would advise you to calm down a little. These passions will calm down regardless of who is the president here. Again, believe me, if you think hard, any president who comes to the White House will reckon with it. Thank you, Mr. Yunus. And I would like to highlight Poland and Ukraine as a separate issue. We understand that every month, every year of the war, more and more of our partners think and speak frankly about national interests. This is probably right, whether we like it in Ukraine or not. For example, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, the president of my country, said the following. He allegedly agreed with the then NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg that they would protect the airspace over Poland, and Poland could transfer several dozen, 24 MiG-29s to Ukraine. But Zelenskyy says that Poland has come up with some other option of its own in order not to give these MiGs. And here I would also like to recall the letter that was written to Biden, as well as Republicans, representatives of the Republican Party, and Democrats, about Poland shooting down missiles over Ukraine. At first, I thought that maybe this was again PR before the elections, but there was both a Democrat and a Republican. Does this again indicate the indecisiveness of the Biden administration, or how can this be understood? Let's not have any illusions. Let's clearly say that this is the Biden administration, no different from the administration of Barack Obama, where Biden was vice president, and the main word, the key word in the policy, foreign policy of this administration is not escalation of the situation. They didn't want this for Georgia, they didn't want it for Crimea, Donbass, and they don't want it to this day, and they don't want these 2.5 years of this war. In other words, this is their main message, this is their key vision of all these problems. Because they do not want this, these are escalations in the Middle East. Note that Netanyahu is escalating the situation there. And note, he has achieved quite a lot of success there, and his rating has increased today inside Israel, while it is this very policy that he helped Donald Trump, because he wiped the nose of the same Biden. Because this policy did not escalate, it did not bring what Biden wanted, but it brought a concrete result to Netanyahu personally and to Israel's policy in the Middle East in general, and to those who supported them here in America, first of all, to the same Donald Trump. Ukraine should follow the example of Israel in this matter in the same way, that is, this is how it works. Tel Aviv, for example, works with Washington. This is a very important point to understand, because, of course, today you are not Israel, and you do not have the capabilities that Israel has, especially in military technical terms, and you do not have such a strategic partnership agreement with the United States outside NATO, as Israel has, but you have enough support in Europe. Israel does not have such support in Europe. Anti-Semitism in Europe is off the charts, you can see it. Yes, I don't do a lot of good things against you, I mean, I don't do anything bad either, but a lot of people seem to support you in words. That is, what they say about you in words, no one says anything about Israel there. This is in the wake of the policy of the United States, because they understand that the United States of America alone is enough, and Israel will withstand this whole situation without the European Union, including NATO. Therefore, you need to look at all this carefully. As for these letters that were written there, this is pre-election rhetoric. It's you again when you say that there are both of them. So what, both? Because if the President of the United States of America over these 4 years has not made any decisions that are fateful for you, That he will listen to some congressman who will write, "Today you make this decision." He will never do this. He will not do this in the Middle East. He will not do this in the South Caucasus. A pro-Armenian government in the South Caucasus for 4 years, Azerbaijan has achieved tremendous success. They endured a lot in words, said a lot of things. They spoke against Azerbaijan, but they could not achieve anything in the case. They could not do anything, because in order to do it, you need to escalate. And with whom to escalate? With Turkey, with Azerbaijan. If you do not go with Azerbaijan, then first of all you will go with Turkey. And how will they escalate with Turkey? It is a fat member of NATO, a fat key partner in this region. They have a huge number of problems. Naturally, they will have to reckon with this. Therefore, the pro-Armenian Biden government did not escalate this situation, and could not achieve anything. Therefore, Armenians today are dissatisfied with Biden in their suit. They are definitely dissatisfied. They just traditionally vote for the Democrats, but if Trump worked differently, for example, like Bob Dole in the days of Bill Clinton. Dole was the last Republican to win the presidential election in California, when he defeated Bill Clinton. Well, it's just that Bill Clinton won all over America, but back then, let me remind you, Arbojal was a member of the Armenian caucus, said all the same nonsense that Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, Menendez. They all discussed on these Armenian topics. He also spoke, and he liked it, so they voted. Trump just doesn't do it, he doesn't care. Therefore, we, Azerbaijanis, on the contrary, are happy that he does not do this. But Armenians do not like this. But Armenians also do not like what Biden is doing. That is, he also did not deal with this problem. He wanted to put pressure on Azerbaijan in words. So what's next? Can you do something in reality? You can't do anything. International law is on the side of Azerbaijan, and you are not there on earth. Plus, it is clear that you do not want to escalate the situation there today. And they will have the same attitude to the same elections in Moldova, to the same elections in Georgia. You can be sure that I am following all this closely. As long as this administration is here, they don't want an escalation anywhere. Nowhere. And if they do not want escalation anywhere, we should not expect any sudden movements. Yes, they will not make sharp movements towards the minus, but they will not make such sharp movements towards the plus either. But they will support this policy. It's just that you squeeze the maximum out of this policy. I think that what your President Zelenskyy throws into the public plane is also a kind of lever of pressure. On the one hand, you have regularly, through the media and unnamed high-ranking sources, throughout this war, repeatedly put pressure on the Ukrainian government, through this ipso into the Ukrainian information field, created defeatist narratives and the like to make Ukraine falter. Well, thank God, I am very glad that the Ukrainian leadership reacted to this correctly, yes. Take this tactic on board and so now you are putting pressure on them, that's when you voice it. Look, yes, when at Trump's campaign rally some comedian blurted out unsuccessfully about Puerto Rico, yes, the Russian-American topic, called the topic of garbage. As soon as the Democrats began to spin it, the next day US President Biden blurted out nonsense. He put a comma in the wrong place. He made an emphasis in the wrong place. It had to be a, or it rained in the morning, and today Donald Trump got on a garbage truck, put on a garbage man's suit and began to spin this topic in this direction. That is, what I am saying is how they use all sorts of blunders in domestic policy, that is, how important it is to them. Understanding the importance of the election campaign, the bets that are being made here, I think it is very right when President Zelenskyy voices such things at this very moment. And I think this should be done not only during the election campaign. This should not be related to the election campaign. Must be related. This is the agenda of every day of Ukraine in the information field of the collective West and, first of all, the United States of America, Great Britain, Germany, France. That is, in those countries from which you expect real help. And in Brussels, and, first of all, because the headquarters of the European Union and NATO are located there. That is, it must be regularly voiced sometimes in such a way that it is like an attack, so that everyone understands that President Zelenskyy will not allow, so to speak, behind his back to do everything that you have been doing since 2008 behind the back of Georgia, since 2014 behind the back of Ukraine and so on. That is, the repetition of the simple, he will not allow it. And the more he shows it, the more it will give a positive result. Next, I would like to ask you about Trump's statements. Well, you showed perfectly well today that Trump first said 250, then 220, 250 again, But this is Trump. He takes these numbers as if out of thin air, and in most of his statements, yes, he seeks to shock. But still, during the rally in Pennsylvania, he remembered that Europe should buy more from the United States of America. But here I would like to point out something else. He said about China that it imposes a 60% duty on imports from China. And so I read a lot of different publications. Experts say that China and Xi Jinping are afraid of Trump, because Trump can really be tougher in his policy towards China. How true is this? Yes, it's true. It is true that China has placed its bets on Joe Biden. And note, Biden's policy is not escalated. Recently, you have not noticed how calmly relations are developing. You have met more than twice. The topic of Taiwan is not aggressive. This is all that is within the framework of the genre in which this topic has always taken place. But there is no such escalation, because they have an agreement not to escalate. This is far from accidental. These Chinese pandas have returned here to the United States of America. This is a gesture of goodwill. That is, if the Chinese send pandas to the zoo in Washington, this is a milestone of respect for the country. That is, this is a symbol of the fact that our relations are not escalating in this regard. Therefore, yes, we understand that China today is interested in this administration staying. And Trump, he remembered his cadence, his relationship with China. And I think, of course, it will be tougher to behave with China. And what he says is that he imposes tariffs on 10%, and on Chinese, on 60%. He can say a lot, but how it will look in reality, better listen to economists who will better explain that this will hit not only China, but also directly the United States of America itself and its allies in Europe. Do not forget that China is buzzing for $1.5 trillion with the United States of America and with Europe, and if this cheap commodity ceases to enter these markets on such a scale, this suggests that prices for American products are increasing, and this means an increase in prices. Who needs a price increase? The consumer does not need it. A consumer who comes out of his wallet, and he goes to the store, and he does not perceive from the fact that patriotism is like that. Yes, I have to buy socks made in America. I absolutely don't care about Chinese, Vietnamese or Malaysian socks. The main thing is that he buys these socks, say, for $5, and he will buy these socks for $10, and why should he? And so on. This applies to a huge amount of consumer goods. Therefore, this is an economic issue here, which is so random, no one will allow the same Trump to decide. He can want a lot, but the market economy has its own law. And the market economy is such a strange capitalist one, and how the United States of America is defined not by Donald Trump, but by the stock exchanges, and all those who play on this exchange, and who. And therefore, yes, of course, a lot depends on the policy of this or that government. There is the Dow Jones Index, and the Nasdaq, and the NSR 500. In other words, all this, of course, sometimes fevers at the point that affects the financial system of a particular country, including the United States. But do not forget that China is one of the most important partners of both the United States and its direct allies in the European Union. That is, these are the first three economies of the planet. The first is the United States, the second is China, and the third is the European Union. And here, no one will allow Donald Trump, and not only him, to come, so to speak, to smash a saber. Therefore, yes, he will be tougher, but I think that here he will also look for options on how to negotiate. You can put pressure, but with all the options, I do not think it will reach some red lines with the same China. I remember his cadence 4 years ago, and as you remember, there were no red lines. I think the events around the world and the fact that the whole world is in such a fever today, not only politically, but also economically. Therefore, it is no coincidence that all the countries today that are not so happy with everything that is happening in the world, because the BRICS are gathering, the SCO are also gathering, and different countries are also going to say that everyone is happy with each other. Not like that, but it is clear that everything here cannot be smeared with paints alone. And the United States will have to reckon with this, Because the United States, while remaining the leader of the world economy, is also in the biggest and deepest crisis. And the political crisis, and the personnel crisis, sometimes the economic crisis can be aggravated if today America is still in the black economically. So it was in the black under Trump, it was in the black even before Trump, if you know. That is, this is how America is developing today, and it does not depend on who Biden or Trump is today. You can talk to someone more or less, but the pandemic has made its own adjustments a little. In any case, today no one denies that the American economy is also in the black, and this can be seen on the stock exchange. You can do it, you like Biden, you don't like Biden, but this is America, and not everything is done by Washington, America, it's just that this system is established. It can just be improved, it can be worsened. This applies to many aspects of business, the domestic market, in the same way, so they have different attitudes to this energy topic. One is in favor of starting production, increasing this production within America, the other, on the contrary, is in favor of a completely different type of energy. That is, the attitude of the Democrats to climate issues, the attitude of Trump, who calls it fraud and so on, is not such an easy issue to come and say, let me make 10% of this tariff. In the election campaign, how many people promised to raise wages, and do this, and do this, and do that? So what's next? I have never seen in my entire life, not only in America, but in general in life, that at least half of what is promised at election rallies has ever been fulfilled by anyone. Yes, you can fulfill some key points that can be easily done. I think that he can even solve the migration issue the way he wants, and the topic of abortion cannot be done the way he wants. There are just moments that can be dragged through, because if it does not require, so to speak, a decision of Congress, that is, bicameral support, if it is enough to push something through the Supreme Court, as it did, for example, yes, send 3 of his people there, it is he who can achieve certain moments. Yes, the president has great powers in the executive branch, but in key, strategic issues, he will have to reckon with the interests of both Congress and big business as well. He will not be able to shoot himself in the foot, because the same big business today brings and tries to bring him back to the eye. Look today at how many oligarchs invest a lot of money there. They are just investing for Trump's beautiful eyes. They don't care that Trump has much more money than Trump. Whoever pays calls the tune, so they have their own plans for the foreign market, what it will look like, and they understand what China is today. China is not Russia, let's not be deceived ourselves. Yes, China today has grown into such a monster, and this monster was made, first of all, by the Americans themselves since the 70s of their policy. Therefore, they will not be able to run over them so easily, and they will not be able to do anything not on the topic of Taiwan. Let me remind you how they swallowed this Hong Kong. Believe me, I have no doubt that the time will come when they swallow Taiwan in the same way. And they will swallow it with the consent of the United States of America. Well, it's just that the time has come, this bargaining. Look at how they're working with Russia today, and they're looking for any option to make a deal with the same Russia. Well, because they need Russia as a deterrent against China, right? And tomorrow they will need the same China in order to contain the same Russia, to contain something else on the planet, because the planet is seething, and I do not think that all this will settle down in the near future. So I also look at the relationship between the United States and China quite calmly. I do not foresee such sharp spikes there that can come to some kind of hot phase. Yes, there may be tension, but it will not be a hot phase. Yes, Mr. Yunus, of course, the Caucasus, about the fact that parliamentary elections were held in Georgia on the 26th, wins, and now there is a recount of votes. Georgia, again, declared the victory of Ivanishvili's Georgian dream. Canada, I know for sure, Sweden is terminating or reducing, it is correct to say, cooperation with the Georgian government. Where is it all going? Volodymyr Zelenskyy says that Georgia has now turned to Russia. Well, if President Zelenskyy said so, I do not agree with him that this is so, because Georgia has not turned to Russia. Georgia has not turned away from the European Union. Georgia simply proceeds from the situation that is happening in the world today. Georgia comes from 2008, when the same Russia attacked Georgia, annexed Abkhazia and the Skinvali region, and the same West betrayed Georgia. Therefore, based on this, what moral right does the European Union have to make claims to Georgia? And where do you see that Georgia is turning to Russia? Do they have diplomatic relations? They have increased today. The trade turnover has increased so much. It has increased more than Armenia's. Do they have the same opportunities as Armenia? It's just that when someone discusses this topic, he should just look at the map of where the South Caucasus is located. I have already said in my previous interviews, I can repeat it with you. Today, the West, seeing that they suffered a fiasco in Azerbaijan after the Second Karabakh War, that is, they have no levers of influence on Azerbaijan, that is, the Karabakh issue is gone, because the Karabakh issue is a lever of influence on both Azerbaijan and Armenia. Azerbaijan has stepped out from under this lever and secured today from Brussels, from the United States, from France, from Russia, including Iran. Everything that played a role in this war no longer plays any role. That is, I am talking about the result. As a result, Azerbaijan restored its sovereignty and territorial integrity. We have gone out of bounds. And Russia takes this into account, Iran takes this into account. Moreover, today it is beneficial for them to reckon in the conditions of confrontation between Russia and the West. And Azerbaijan is playing competently on this today. Azerbaijan has a fairly good relationship with the European Union. Well, apart from France and so on. And in addition to the administration here in the United States. I emphasize, it is the democratic administration. Because if the Republicans come, the situation will change by 108 degrees. I will eat my boots. Therefore, the entire Azerbaijani people are waiting for Biden to be overthrown, and someone from the Republicans will come in his place. They were given light bulbs, it will be Trump or someone else. We will not have such Armenian centrism here, in this regard. Based on this, the West has decided today to squeeze out Georgia and Armenia, to make some kind of bridgehead. Let's look at geography. I have said 1,000 times, Armenia is at an impasse today. Here is Turkey, here is Azerbaijan, from the south is Iran, and here is Georgia. Armenia has no access to the borders, nor to the sea, anywhere, nothing. How will the West get there? It can only come through Georgia. And if Georgia is demonstrating today, when they say that Georgia is turning towards Russia, those who are talking about this topic, have you forgotten that Georgia was recently accepted as a candidate for the European Union? This was accepted by the government. This government did everything that gave them this opportunity. That is, they have been in power for 12 years. Over these 12 years, it means that they have done a lot of things. Moreover, they have the stars of the European Union on the flag, and their policy in this regard. It's just another matter, they don't do what you want them to do. And why don't they do it? Because they are looking at what is happening today on the Russian-Ukrainian front. They are looking at the elections in Moldova. Look at what the elections in Moldova have shown. Supporters of the European Union received, yes, 50% of the vote and a few tenths. Why is this such a result? Because the West has betrayed Ukraine over these 2.5 years. That is, he did not give that support. In Moldova, they saw this and were scared. In Georgia, they were just as scared of it. Even look at how this Georgian government used these billboards immorally, from my point of view. War and peace. So you gave, I mean the West, you gave them this reason to do this, to speculate on your toothless approach to supporting the same Ukraine. And they used it, and it has a social demand. Now look, dear Igor, here is simple arithmetic. You know, my sympathies are on the side of Mikhail Saakashvili. I do not sympathize with the president of Georgia in the current ZURAB. Until she amnesties the third president of Georgia, Mikhail Saakashvili, she will not hear a single positive word from me. Until the Georgian government releases Mikhail Saakashvili from prison, they will not hear a single positive word from me. Until the entire Georgian opposition goes to a million-strong rally in order to release Mikhail Saakashvili, they will not hear a single positive word from me. And they will not hear any word of support. Plus, I'll tell you differently, honestly, all of them are interested in him being in prison. Power, because he is their opponent. Opposition only for this simple reason. He is a charismatic leader who can become the leader of this opposition again. And they don't need it. All these four parties that came out there are basically all those that were in the party of the same Mikhail Saakashvili. And there his party is separate now. And 3 others. Look how much they have gained. I only mean the data that they say themselves. I will not talk about government data. According to the opposition, the Georgian Dream collected 42%. And according to this opposition, these four parties, each of them did not even gain half, well, up to 20%, 16 to 18 somewhere, each of these. This means that they themselves admit that each of them individually does not enjoy the support of Georgian society, as the Georgian Dream pronounced. A simple question: why is it the first and the second, and why didn't the four of you unite? Why didn't you go as a single bloc? If you have the protection of the values, as you say, of European integration, which Mikhail Saakashvili brought to your country, then the foundation for all this was made by modern Georgia. This is Mikhail Saakashvili, this is his brainchild. And if you say you're defending it, why didn't you unite for that purpose? You have not united because you have a different goal, you want to come to power. So how are you different from this government, the Georgian Dream, which wants to stay in this government? It means that you are the same as them, and you have something in common that unites you. This is only the fate of Mikhail Saakashvili. And they want him to be in prison, and you want him to be in prison. And Salome Zurabishvili definitely. Why does she need such a charismatic former president? Then no one will look in her direction at all. Now at least they are looking in her direction, because it seems to have united with this opposition. And even mind you, even this president of Georgia cannot unite all four of them. I have no doubt that there will be certain people among them who are ready to make a deal with the same government today. Therefore, all this is visible from America, it can be seen from Europe. And I don't think that Europe does not understand this, and therefore they will not escalate in order to further push Georgia into the arms of the same Russia. They will just now look behind the scenes for an opportunity to save face. For the fact that maybe this law will not be cancelled on agents, the Georgian Dream will not be cancelled. Well, maybe it will just be temporarily slowed down, that it will not be implemented, because if there are no grounds for its implementation, they can agree behind the scenes. And then one of these four parties will make a deal and go to parliament, and that's it. That is, where am I leading this? Today, when someone says that someone is turning here in Georgia they are not turning anywhere. Unambiguously, Georgia will never forgive Russia for August 2008. I am the one who always pronounces this phrase. Just like Azerbaijan will not forgive Russia for the First Karabakh War and on January 20, 1990 in Baku. Nor will it forgive the massacre of the 1992 genocide of Russia. We will not forgive this. Yes, we know who did it, what government. One government was Yeltsin, and today it is Putin's government. Tomorrow there will be another government of someone else. But 200 years is Russia, this is the Russian Empire, the Soviet Union. We understand where Russia and their relations are, from the fact that we have pragmatic relations today. The First Karabakh War, they punished us. Now they are pragmatic. And tomorrow it may be completely different. We understand what Russia is and what Iran is for us. Historically, we understand. We have a good historical memory. We just proceed from the situation that has developed today. So Georgia proceeds from this situation. Georgia starts from 2008. Therefore, when someone says that Georgia will never be pro-Russian, definitely, after August 2008, this is a priori impossible. This is possible only if Russia returns Abkhazia to the Tskhinvali region. Russia will never do this. There is a naval base in Abkhazia, and a land base in the Tskhinvali region. Will Russia go against it? In the current situation of geopolitical turbulence, yes, it will never go. Russia will not agree to the same questions regarding Armenia. And Russia, looking at what we see on the Russian-Ukrainian front, what claims are there today against the same Georgia? What are the claims against the Moldovan people today? These are the questions that we are voicing now. And when we say, Georgia has turned here, tomorrow, if Ukraine says something that Europe does not like, and Ukraine has the moral right to say it. Just like President Zelenskyy has the moral right today to reprimand the White House, to reprimand Brussels, to reprimand them all. You are to blame for all this. Both in 2014 on your conscience, and the current war is on your conscience. Because the Ukrainian people went to the Euromaidan, they believed you. And if we take it deeper, it began with Viktor Yushchenko. What did you do? You betrayed them. Mikhail Saakashvili did all this. As Mikhail Saakashvili did, not a single politician in the post-Soviet space did for European integration. Where is he sitting? In prison. I have described to you the attitude of the current Georgian political leaders towards him. But how is it treated in the West? Why doesn't Biden pick up the phone, decide his fate? Or someone in the West, or Brussels, or NATO? All these politicians who fly to you, why don't they do it? And I think that President Zelenskyy, looking at all this, probably also draws conclusions for himself that no matter how he repeats the fate of the same Mikhail Saakashvili, he probably would not want to. Therefore, it is now tough. And I think that he has long removed rose-colored glasses in relations with the West. Yes, they say a lot of beautiful things. So I also took off these rose-colored glasses. I say this regularly. I live in America, but I took off these rose-colored glasses. I told you about the Trump administration and the Biden administration. Who feels about my native Azerbaijan? But in general, so to speak, 30 years ago they punished us, and today they are not happy about us. They don't care who is in the government of Azerbaijan, the democratic government of the LCB or the authoritarian regime. There is no difference for them. They are Armenian-centric. They support them. They don't like us. So if they don't like us, why should I stand for European integration? For our accession to NATO? What if as a result of this I do not receive the restoration of the territorial value and sovereignty of my native Azerbaijan? Why should I advocate this? Just because some of your interests are pushing here. And why should I do this? So I did it. I lost Karabakh and 7 districts. Moldova did it. Transnistria is not recognized to this day. Georgia, Saakashvili did it, and received Abkhazia and the Skin-Valley region for it. Ukraine did it, lost Crimea, lost Donbass, and now Russia is advancing. And what are you doing to make these countries, these peoples believe what you are saying? You don't do it for this. You don't write for them. And when someone stands up for them, for example, like Turkey stands up for Azerbaijan, you don't like it. You start attacking Turkey, and you start this mess, human rights, authoritarianism and so on and so forth. Did human rights exist in Armenia during the times of Robert Kacharian, Serge Sargsyan, the Khojaly tragedy, this genocide? Or has Armenia not been a pro-Russian outpost and base there for 30 years? Where is the Russian military base with government permission located today? In Azerbaijan, it is not available. In Georgia, it is also not available with the permission of the Georgian government, and in Armenia it is available on an indefinite basis. Are you even aware that the Russian border guards, as well as the Russian military bases, have been indefinite since 1992? Does the West not know this? Why is the West attacking Georgia, attacking Azerbaijan, and not attacking Armenia? Why does the West talk about circumventing sanctions all over the world, and is not interested in where Armenia's trade turnover today will be 16 billion by the end of the year, but today as of November it is already 14 billion. Armenia is so small, no oil, no gas, 14 billion, and Azerbaijan, which has no gas, has only 4 billion trade in Russia. Why is no one interested in this in the West? Words mean nothing. Do you run into Georgia? Georgia, which received the status of an invitation to the European Union, which received visa-free travel and which did more than anyone else in the South Caucasus what Ukraine did in order to integrate into the European Union during the time of Saakashvili. And you are punishing them today, but you do not say a word about Armenia. And you also send money to Armenia, 250 million through USAID. You turn a blind eye to the supply of weapons from India and, moreover, through the territory of Iran. You turn a blind eye to the fact that Armenia has the #1 strategic military political partner, Iran, the enemy of your West. And you don't see all this. You are blind, and after that you want there to be some pro-European interests in Azerbaijan. I am not sure that there will be any politician in Azerbaijan who will start pushing this after the Second Karabakh War. After what is happening on the Russian-Ukrainian front, no one will be found. Those who love Azerbaijan will be silent on this topic. In order to voice these things, you need to be sure that these people will fit in for you. In Europe, no one is going to fit in for Azerbaijan, in Brussels, in NATO. The only country on the planet that really wanted to fit in for us and was ready to do so was Turkey. And that's why Turkey, we say that we have a family. This is a union of Turkic states. And all the rest we have pragmatic relations. We have the same relations with the European Union as with Russia. We have the same relations with China. Here we are signing these documents. Just look at how many documents we have with Russia, the same document with China, but with the European Union we have 10 such documents with 10 countries. This does not cause concern in anyone, but here it does. And why does it cause? It is not interesting for Azerbaijan to see where we are. Why can you and we can't? That is, They also trade democracy with autocracies from morning to evening, with the same Russia. They have been trading for 25 years, and they continue to this day. Billions are flowing from there, from China. They are trading $1 trillion on the portal. It allows me to do this. It allows Armenia to do this. It turns a blind eye. It does not allow Georgia to do much, because today the geopolitical situation says that it is necessary to blow up, to do so in order to squeeze out Russia, but this can be done in a completely different way. Look at the geography, see who is a NATO member here. In this geography, only Turkey is a NATO member, so work with her. Why don't you work with them? Because you are not satisfied with the current government in Turkey. So why did you try to throw him off? Did you succeed? No, it didn't work out. It is always necessary to work correctly with geography. You see, these are all quite complicated things, so for all my criticism of what is happening in Georgia, I have described everything to you. And I believe that Georgia and Georgian society have nothing to look for somewhere out there, in the West or somewhere else. As long as the president of Georgia, the third president of Georgia, is in prison, I do not expect a good future for Georgia. I don't see, and moreover, I will never support them while he is in prison. When you release him, then listen to what he will say. After that, I think, he had a huge revaluation of values when he returned there, and he expected one thing, but got something completely different. And this, in fact, should be a lesson for everyone. This should be a lesson not only for Georgians, it should be a lesson for Azerbaijanis and Armenians, who today do not understand many things and do not agree to sign a peace treaty with Azerbaijan, and sometimes listen to these Donalds, who bring gifts, who are ready to give Armenia back to distribution. I am glad that Georgian society today is so cautious about all these moments, because, why should we be educated on images? You deal with Russia on the Russian-Ukrainian front, and then you will see the state of mind in the same South Caucasus, in the same Moldova. And as long as you behave like this, you have nothing to catch in the South Caucasus. And then we will try to come to an agreement ourselves. In principle, I see that in Armenian society personally, at least that Pashinyan came to understand that, especially after the elections in Georgia, he also realized that they would not be able to use the airspace in Georgia, the territory of Georgia and the government of Georgia against the interests of Azerbaijan and Turkey. This means that the West will not be able to do anything for Armenia in this situation. Russia will not do it, Iran will not do it. So, the idea of direct contact with Azerbaijan without intermediaries, without Russia, without Iran, without France, without the United States. Azerbaijan tells you this for 4 years. Better late than never, but I think there are no other options in Armenia. In Georgia, I do not think that there will be any escalation, I do not think that it will overflow, because if 40%, according to the estimates of the same opposition, supported the Georgian dream, and this is almost half of Georgian society, this is a fairly solid figure. Mr. Yunus, as always, thank you very much for this conversation. We managed to talk a lot from the United States of America, and assistance to Ukraine, and elections, and the Caucasus. As always, thank you for making a general picture, and after talking to you, both our viewers and I have a better understanding of the geopolitical processes on this planet. Thank you very much. Thank you. Goodbye. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes. My name is Yuri Gavryshchak. I will ask you to like, subscribe, comment. And, of course, be sure to share our conversations. We will see you on the air of Channel 24.